wanted to compete. So I did my first show at the age of 14. It was me and this other competitor, and I won first place, got my first trophy ever, and then from there I was basically hooked. So then I just kept reading the magazines and kept competing from there, and that's pretty much how it started.
And then how did you end up doing the team nationals? Was that just a natural progression for you, or what?
Well, living in New Jersey, it's a pretty competitive bodybuilding state. So I competed at the age of 14. I would compete every year. I competed at 15, 16, and then I just worked my way up through the national level, and then Teen Nationals was there, and I did it. Got third, and it was good.
And then the next year, was it that you won your first overall?
I believe so, yeah. I think it might have been in Connecticut. I think it might have been a Mike Katz show, 1991, or maybe 92. 1991, I did do the Junior Nationals. 92. 92. What did I say? 2002?
91, you said.
Oh, yeah, 92. Yeah, I'm going way back, man. Yeah. But, yeah, 1992, the Junior Nationals, that was a good year. That was in Red Bank, New Jersey, and that was with Paul DeMeo and some guy you might have heard of him, Kevin Laverone.
Oh. There you go. Oh, actually, it might be 93 then at that point.
91.
Oh, 91?
Red Bank, New Jersey. Yep, I'll remember that for a long time.
Oh, back then.
Yeah.
What was that like competing with guys like DeMeo? What was
incredible, because it was like this old theater in Red Bank, New Jersey. It was down in the basement, you know, low ceilings and stuff. And Kevin Laverone and Paul DeMeo, I mean, these guys were like giants, you know. So competing with them, it was kind of like getting a taste of the pros. But these guys weren't even pros yet. It was just the Junior Nationals, you know. But to me, this was the big time. So it was amazing.
Did you ever like get to know DeMeo or anything like that? Or?
No, because he was up from Boston. So I mean, I really only saw him at that show, and I knew him from like the magazines and stuff. Yeah. And when you meet somebody like that for the first time, you're just kind of like, ugh. Especially competing, you know. Let me give him his space, you know. They're in their zone.
Yeah. What would you say in the 90s was like? What would you say the theme for 90s bodybuilding was, if that makes sense? Like,
I think that was like really the heyday for bodybuilding, because I mean, to me the early, you know, Arnold and stuff, you know, but then Lee Haney kind of came out in the 80s, and that's when I got into bodybuilding. And then Lee Haney, Dorian Yates, you know, all the mass monsters and stuff. I mean, that's when bodybuilding really came into like how big are these guys going to get? I mean, you actually watch the sport grow, and you watch the competitors grow, and it was kind of amazing because you're almost watching something that's growing right before your eyes. You know, like how big are these guys going to get? You know, you saw your first bodybuilder at 300 pounds, Greg Kovacs and all that stuff. So I mean, all this, yes. So I mean, all this, you know, you didn't know how big the sport was going to get, and it was neat being a part of it.
What was it like the Legend of Ronnie? What was that like during the 90s instead of now?
It was pretty awesome. His strength feats were incredible. I mean, the way he could just push up 200-pound dumbbells like they were nothing. It was almost like he was defying gravity. So, pretty amazing.
What was your biggest struggles at the national level? Like when you were almost like near that, when you're first at the national level?
Well, I've actually never done the nationals before.
Well, but those types of shows, like the North Americans, that type of stuff.
Let's see, the first show I did was Junior Nationals in 1991. And like I said, I was only 20 years old there. But I have nothing good things to say about them. I mean, I just thought it was exciting. I mean, just the off-season training, and then the pre-contest training, and then to fly out to a different state and to be competing against the best guys, you know, in the United States. It was pretty amazing. And then it took me until 1994 until I actually made my first top 5 finish. So I mean, there was 4 good years of just every year going out and getting beat, you know, not making the top 5. You don't make the top 5 of the Junior Nationals, you know, you just kind of do your quarter turns and send you home. So that's kind of, you know, that can kind of make you want to stop, you know, if you're not completely motivated.
What made you come back? Like, you know, because I feel like a lot of people in that position, you know, they might walk away right then. How come you knew? I mean, it clearly paid off. You got your pro card eventually.
I love bodybuilding. I loved it. I loved the lifestyle. I loved eating all the food. I loved training. I loved just waking up and breathing it every day. I loved watching my body grow. I loved how much work I could put into it. The more work and the more dedicated I was, the more improvement I saw in my body, you know? And, you know, you're competing ultimately against yourself, but when you compete in a competition, you're competing against other people. And when you're competing against other people in the whole United States, you know, and you actually get like a placing, even if it's 8th, I'm the best 8th light heavyweight in the United States, if not the world. It's a pretty cool feeling, you know, and that kind of goes down forever, you know. So you're working to make your mark, and that's what I was doing. And I love the hard training, and I love the whole bodybuilding lifestyle.
That's awesome. And how would you say you saw bodybuilding change from, say, early 1990s to late 1990s?
A lot of drugs. A lot of drugs. A lot of new drugs that were coming out onto the scene. Clenbuterol, IGF, growth hormone, insulin, DMP. Anti-estrogens are always there. But I mean, just a lot of stuff that you never heard of before. You heard about people taking, and then, you know, you'd try them, and it was just kind of like a big chemistry set.
Well, then there we go. Let's get this part of the interview started a little bit. I guess let's start off. What would you say? Like, what was your first experiences with, like, I mean, drugs? It's drugs. I mean, chemical. What was your first experience with the chemical culture of bodybuilding?
Well, when I did my first show, when I was 14 in 1985, I was natural, obviously, if you didn't know that. But I knew about steroids, and after I got my first place trophy there, I'm the type of person where, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this all the way. So I wanted to find out what's the next show, what's the pinnacle, what's the ultimate, Mr. Olympia's the top thing. So I mean, I read magazines and I talked to people in the gym. I knew about steroids, so I already had a game plan in my head almost at the age of 14 of when's the right time to start this. You know, when, you know, I kind of knew at the age of 14, 15 that was too early. And in my mind, I kind of came to the age of, I thought, okay, once I turn 18, you know, maybe I'm an adult, then I would start my first cycle then. And I did that. So I competed at 15, 16, 17 naturally. And then I did my first cycle on my 18th birthday is when I first took my first bodybuilding drug. I took D-ball. I went up to, there were 5 little blue pills, 5 milligrams each. I took 5 a day. And actually the gains weren't for training and competing for 4 years. And then, you know, just, you know, because people would come up to me all the time when I was 16 years old, older guys that were competed that I looked up to, it would be like, hey, Mike, what are you taking, dude? And I'd be like, I'd feel good because I was like, nothing. Wow, this guy thinks I'm on something. And they'd be getting pissed, like, no, what are you taking, dude? I know you're doing something. And I'm like, I'm not, you know? So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, man, wait till I take something and I blow up and I'm going to blow these people's minds. And when I took it, you know, I might have gained 8 or 10 pounds, but not the amazing gains that some people think it is, you know, 20 pounds on your first cycle. I mean, I made some good gains, but it wasn't anything that was out of this world.
When would you say the real gains came? Early, the first real early gains, not before you step things up, but like your first proper cycle.
I'd say it's a natural progression, you know? Everything has to be in place. Your mental attitude has to be in place, your diet has to be in place, your training has to be in place, your drugs has to be in place. I started small and just consistently, every time I did a cycle, I mapped everything out, I wrote everything down, I had diaries of everything, and then each time I would do I would always make sure I did an off cycle. You know, the amount of time that I was on, I did at least that amount of time off. I think the first time I did an 8-week cycle, and I think I took 16 or 20 weeks off. And then my next cycle, instead of doing 8 weeks, I did 10 weeks. And then the next cycle after that, I think I added an injectable. I added maybe Deca or something like that. So just throughout the years, it just naturally progressed on to the next thing. Just like when I was 15, I was probably inclining the 45-pound dumbbells, and then I'd work my way up to the 55s and the 65s and the 75s into my pro career when I'm pressing the 200s like Ronnie. So a whole natural progression. Bodybuilding, you know, I built it.
What would you say when you transitioned from the winning North Americans to going to the pros? Did that natural progression just continue, or did you step it up at that point, or did anything change at that point really, or just keep doing what you're doing?
It was just a vindication. Turning pro is you got your card and you made it, you know, and I didn't do anything outside of the box. I didn't step it up any more than I normally did. I just figured, hey, I got a winning package here and a winning formula. I'll just continue to keep doing what I'm doing, and so that's it.
And so how would you say, how would you say your cycles changed in the course? Because you started competing early. You've been competing a long time.
Yeah.
How would you say your competitive cycles from when you first started doing really well at shows to turning pro? How would that progress in that time? Because you were at the national level a while.
Yeah, 1990 was my first national show.
Exactly. Did you just start upping the dosages then, or like just that natural progression?
Yeah, like I said, each time I did a cycle, I would just, I would never do the same cycle twice, and if I did, it would be more of what I took last time. So yeah, just a natural progression.
And then as your cycle started to advance, what became, and I read a little bit about this, how your off season would become a little bit shorter, but what's your type of theories of like off season, cycling off, and like would you consider like coming to TRT doses or HRT doses, or like coming off completely, like, and also of pro guys, how many of them are like, what do you think is the common practice? And I know there's a spectrum there.
Right.
There's a huge spectrum, but
Well, I like to say, I can only speak for myself, I've spoken to a few other pro bodybuilders and asked them about their cycles, but even a lot of times when you ask them to their face, you don't know exactly how honestly truthful they're being. I've worked with a lot of natural competitors that, say they're natural, but I know for a fact that they've done stuff in the off season, or if they get it prescribed by a doctor, they think, oh, I'm natural, but you're not, it's kind of like you're lying. But like I said, when I would do a cycle in the earlier days, if I did an 8 or 10 week cycle, I would want to take 8 or 10 weeks off. I always did an off cycle. Even towards my pro career, even if I was doing a 16-week cycle, I would take an off cycle. Now I might take, after that 16-week cycle, I might do 2 weeks of HCG and then a week of Clomid, and then maybe take 2 or 3 weeks off until once I noticed my strength gains or my strength was going down, and then I'd go back on, which would maybe be 4 or 5 weeks off, something like that. So it's not much off time, especially towards the end of the career.
And what would you say, at what point did you start to implement stuff like growth hormone and insulin? When did you start to hear about those things in comparison to anabolics? Because I feel like a lot of people know about anabolics before the other stuff.
Right.
And when did you start to implement those stuff? Even if you did insulin or GH at different times, like at what point in the career did you feel that it was appropriate to do those things?
Well, I remember, I think I did growth around 1994, which coincidentally, 1994 was the first year I placed at a junior national show. So did growth hormone have something to do with that? Maybe, could be. And then a few years after that, insulin came along, and I was doing insulin for years before I turned pro in '99, and that's a very powerful drug, insulin. But it's also a drug that can kill you, and I have a few stories about that too. So.
Well, I'm kind of interested about those. What type of stories do you have about that?
Well, there was one time I would take insulin in the off season, and I'd take it with growth and with the anabolics, and it's a great drug for size and to shuttle, aminos and glucose into your muscle cell, and it's definitely good for size and for your pump. Off season, great. Pre-contest, it's kind of tricky, because you're cutting your calories down, you're not taking as many carbs. And I think it was 2 years, maybe the year before I turned pro, and I'd take too much insulin, and I had like an episode at my house. Thank God I had a girlfriend that was there with me that actually ended up calling like the 911 or the fire department and EMS, and police showed up at my door. I was fishing out on the ground. I remember, because insulin, your blood sugar gets so low on insulin that you could literally fall on the ground face down, wake up looking at the ground, and then think to myself, okay, I need to get up and I need to get some carbohydrates, some sugar into my system. I'd have my oatmeal sitting on my table, and then as soon as I stood up, the amount of sugar it took to get me off the ground, I'd fall right back down again. So like I said, thank God I had a girlfriend that was there, because I was throwing dishes around and getting like erratic and stuff. And then the EMS came and the police came, and it was a bad scene, because if she wasn't there, if I would have hit the deck and not got up, I could have went into a coma or possibly died.
That's how did you? So you were using insulin as an amateur getting into the national race.
Yes. Yep.
And you started that after you'd already made the top 5. What? This is actually a question from a guy who's probably about to turn pro next year. His question was like, what? what effects have you seen insulin take on a physique? Like, how effective is it? And do you think there's a difference from person to person also? And have you seen negative effects of insulin as well?
Yeah. Insulin's a great drug for putting on size and for strength and for your pump. But it's dangerous. It can kill you, you know? You have to use, and I was always smart enough to start with a very small dose, small enough that I didn't even notice the effect. And then
It's around 97.
Right. And then I would build it up to a point where I could actually feel the effects. But you have to, you know, it's a dangerous drug. You have to be careful. And if you take too much, you can damage yourself. You know, you can mess up your blood sugar for life.
And did you prefer short short acting or long acting?
I usually took just the R. Just the regular, just the R. I had the Humalog, and I might have used that before, but that's even faster and even harder to control. You can take that, and if you don't have, you know, if you don't put any carbohydrates in your system, it's going to burn up whatever's in your bloodstream, and you're gonna pass out. So,
and what type of units would you say you were using of the insulin?
I think
towards the end. How about that?
Towards the end, the most I've taken was probably about 10 or 12, about 3 times a day. And then, you know, there's the old theory about a gram or 10 grams of carbs per unit. So if I was taking in 10 units 3 times a day, per that 10 units, I would make sure that I had at least 100 grams of carbs. I would take my shot, and then within like an hour to 2 hours, I'd take in at least another 100 grams of carbs after that, if not more. You know, off season, I would just try to shovel in as much as I possibly could. I wouldn't even count, you know.
And so you just go all the time.
Yeah.
And so what about with the growth hormone? What would those levels get up to eventually? Well, also here, let's start off with another question. What did you think of the impacts of like generic growth hormone versus like legitimate growth hormone? Like,
well,
and would you say it's really like a prescription is that much better than say like the top?
Well, let me back up Let me back up to '94 when I first took it. Back then, the only growth that I could really find was Humatrope, and that was made by Lilly, and that was an actual American pharmaceutical growth hormone. So, and they did fake that, but I mean, if you got a good eye, you can tell, you know, between a real label and the boxing and the inserts that comes with growth. So, I mean, I only got real growth. You know, I think I had a good enough eye to spot the bad stuff. The doses I started with were probably about 2 to 4 I use every day, maybe about 4 days on, 1 day off. But growth hormone, there's another amazing drug, you know. A lot of people take that now for, you know, kind of like the fountain of youth kind of thing. Steroids will make your muscles grow and get stronger, but they won't make your ligaments or your tendons grow. So there's a danger there that you're going to injure yourself. Growth hormone makes everything grow except for your brain and your eyeballs, I heard. So it's an amazing drug as far as transforming your body. Steroids cause hypertrophy, which means the muscle cell grows bigger. Human growth hormone causes hyperplasmia, which means the muscle cell divides and you actually have more muscle cells to grow and get bigger. So you can actually get bigger on growth than you possibly ever could on all the steroids you could ever possibly take. So that's kind of an exciting aspect of it.
How much of an impact did you notice from the growth hormone at first and long term?
At first, it's really, you read so much stuff about you're going to gain all this weight, but the main thing you notice is you get more muscular. Your body fat comes down, you can eat a tremendous amount of food, and your body fat will still get down. It kind of turns you back into being an 18-year-old kid, where you can just eat pizza and cheeseburgers and candy and gallons of ice cream, and you still have a six-pack and veins.
You're telling me IFBB pros eat cheeseburgers and candy and stuff in their off-season?
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So what, like the off-season eating, you know, what percentage would you say was standard clean eating, and how much was just getting like McDonald's, you know, Dave Plum was eating McDonald's burger a day.
Right,
you know?
and I subscribe to that technique every once in a while. I mean, especially when I was on growth hormone, I would go to McDonald's, I'd probably get about 12 hamburgers and, you know, put 3 burgers on 1 bun, you know, and then eat, you know, 4 of the triples, you know, and I do that a couple times a week. And on growth hormone, you can still, you know, stay shredded on that, you know. I wouldn't do it every day, but once a week. But yeah, growth hormone allows you to keep your body fat down and still eat a tremendous amount of food, and even shit food.
what would be your assessment of like your amateur career? How about just starting off? Like what would, you know, here, you tell me.
Well, growing up in South Jersey, a lot of the big shows were up in New York and up in North Jersey. So a lot of times competing, you know, we'd have to take that 2-hour drive up the New Jersey Turnpike to go to places like Cranston or Red Bank or Patterson, or even into New York for the Empire State. But again, going up there to see a whole new breed of bodybuilder, and you know, Steve Weinberger being the head judge, you know, it was kind of like a taste of the nationals and the USA before you actually got out there. And the level of competition was, you know, in hindsight, you know, you're just competing. But now thinking about it, you know, East Coast and California, you know, they're the two big metros of bodybuilding. So you were competing with the best in the country. And looking back at it, I'm proud of that, you know.
And so, how did the Venice move come along, and when was the Venice move?
I moved out to Venice in about 2000 and boy, let me make sure I get this right. 2002, somewhere around there. 2002 to 2005, and there's a friend of mine, Jeff McFarland, and he said, "Hey, if you want to move out there, I got an apartment. A friend that has an apartment, and you come and move out there." And packed up 2 bags and said, you know, bodybuilding, this is where I need to be, you know, Venice Beach. So I went.
What was the Venice experience like, if you had to summarize it?
Oh, it was awesome. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, it's a culture shock going from New Jersey out to California. It was amazing. It was exciting and but kind of scary at the same time too. I mean, that city they'll eat you up if you're not ready for it, you know. But I mean, I had a goal, and so I just kind of stuck to bodybuilding, and that was it. And then when I retired from bodybuilding, first thing I did was say, hey, I need to move out of here, and that's what brought me to Phoenix. So
you knew once the bodybuilding was over, time to get out of there.
Yeah, no sense in me paying my $1,300 a month rent and paying to park everywhere, and there's no more reason for me to be there anymore.
That's a great point. Let's see.
I wasn't going to live in my car in the parking lot. Some of those guys do.
There's a lot of people that do that.
Yep.
There's a lot of.
I was not going to become that.
Yeah, exactly. No. So when would you say, like, on the internet, a lot of people like know about your health problems, stuff like that. When would you say you first got, like, what was the first thing that you're like, I might have issues?
Probably every time I went to the doctor. You know, every time I went to the doctor and they took my blood pressure and it was, you know, 200 over 110, and depending on the doctor, they were like, you know, you need to stop this or you're going to die, or, you know, basically that's all they said, you know, you need to stop, you know, or you're going to kill yourself.
And at what point in your career did that message start getting relayed to you? What you said? How long did you keep going after it?
5 or 6 years, you know.
So around pro card time?
Yeah, basically, and then soon after, and then as a pro. I was living in California. There was a friend of mine who was a chiropractor, and I went to get my blood work done, and I was just waiting to get the results back, because at this time I could read blood work myself. And luckily my friend was like, Mike, you need to go actually talk to this doctor because he needs to talk to you. So I went to him, and he actually referred me to a nephrologist, which is a kidney specialist. And when I went to the nephrologist, he basically was a straight shooter and just said, hey, Mike, you know, where you're at right now with your tests and all, we just might have to get you set up for dialysis in the next year or so. And then when I heard that, it was kind of like God was giving me a little tap on the shoulder that was saying, hey, you know, you got a path to choose, you know, and it was either continue bodybuilding and the dream you've had your whole life, or let it all go and live. So I chose to live.
And a few people have died since that period.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so, what would you say, like, the biggest, like, health factor, like, because you know your blood pressure got really high, but would you say the excessive eating, the drugs, certain types of drugs, like, what would be the most strenuous thing on a bodybuilder, would you say?
Painkillers.
And that was rep drugs, but here, let's start off with painkillers. Go for it.
Yeah, because I mean, I was taking steroids for years, and then it seemed that once painkillers and Nubane kind of came onto the scene, it's a sneaky bad drug, you know, because you take them for some injury, and then you come off of them, and then another injury comes along, and then all of a sudden, as a bodybuilder, you're taking such an arsenal of drugs and injections. You know, what's this little Nubane shot that I'm taking, or this Vicodin I'm taking here and there? But you know, it's a narcotic, and it's it digs its hooks into you. And when I retired and I stopped I said, okay, I'm going to stop all these drugs. Once I got my mindset, everything was fairly easy to let go. But it's the painkillers and the opiates that kept coming back, and it's a issue I deal with to this day, you know? So, and I feel like that was the hardest thing that put me over the edge as far as my health problems. I think if I just did straight bodybuilding drugs, I probably could have squeaked out a few more years.
I want to like highlight that video for people who know. You know, that's a great point. And so you'd say the biggest thing was the painkillers that we got. And so
terrible for your liver and your kidneys. Terrible. And the acetaminophen is in them because you're taking Vicodin or Percocet that has 500 milligrams of acetaminophen in them. You're taking 10 of those at a time. I mean, that's enough acetaminophen to.
You throw that in with everything else you're doing, it's not a healthy combination. And what would you say, at what point, how about the Nubane? When did you, how about first painkillers? Like, at what point did
It was Nubane. Okay. It just came, I think I was friends with a pharmacist that just wanted to sell them to me, and I was like, no, and then came back 2 months later and ended up just giving them to me. And I didn't even want to take them. And then I tried to sell them to somebody and tried to give them away. And I think I actually gave it to somebody, and I think I actually gave it back. And you read about articles and stuff, and then I think one time I took it when I got home, and I took a very small dose. I took it sub-Q, just a little bit, and enough to where I didn't even feel it, and then I wouldn't take it for a while, and then maybe a couple weeks later I took just a little more, and then I felt a little bit of it, like you had a glass of wine or something. And I remember I would write it down on my calendar, and then I'd see like I went 2 months without taking it, but then once you get it in your system, that's when your body starts craving it. And then once every 2 months became, once a month, and then became once every 2 weeks, and then became once a week, and then became just on the weekend, and then became, until it became every day, and then it became.
At what point would your career, did it start, and at what point would you say it became an issue?
That's a good question. I remember when I moved, I was already taking Nubane before I moved to Venice Beach, which was 2002. I was already taking it. When I moved to California, I started shooting it intravenously. That became a problem because once you start putting stuff in your vein, then it's much more fast acting. And probably as soon as I moved to California. It's such a drug culture out there, which is probably why I started shooting it up. You're around so many people that are doing it too. They're like, why are you taking it this way? Take it that way. And so
would you say
California's a bad influence?
Yeah. Would you say painkillers are like the biggest rec drug? What other rec drugs are big? Like
ecstasy, cocaine, meth. I was smart enough to stay away from a lot of those. Ecstasy is fun with the right people in the right place, but
there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah, but cocaine and meth. I mean, of course, I've tried them before, but I mean, they are bad news. I mean, I knew some bodybuilders that would take meth or coke to cut up for a show, and that's just burning your candle at both ends and ridiculous to me.
What do you think about the cocaine diet? How about that? Since I don't hear about the cocaine.
I've never heard of the cocaine diet.
Well, no, I'm asking you since you're telling us that people would use it to get cut up for shows. They would use it to like.
When I heard that, I was just like, that's ridiculous. That's like, I mean, why? I don't know. It's just, why would you take a street drug to, it's just, it's the wrong way to lose body fat. It's the wrong way to give yourself energy and lose body fat. It's not a bodybuilding drug. That's a club drug, That's two separate things,
At what, how many other bodybuilders during that period did you know that had problems with Nubane as well?
A handful. There's always a handful. There's always a small percentage at every gym that people that are taking it, especially back in the East Coast. Yeah.
The East Coast as
well, in California too.
And DMP, what was your? I know you told. Well, here I'll let you explain.
Right.
What was your experiences with DMP, and what have you like? What types of things you've heard about?
Well, like I said, growing up in New Jersey, I mean, I know there's a few guys up in New York that took it and died. So I mean, I heard of that story and I just kind of discredited it right there and decided never to take it again. And I really didn't hear of too many people to take it. As a matter of fact, I might have heard of one person that's taken it before. So I've just stayed away from that drug. If there's a drug where the side effect is kill you instantly, I try to shy away from it.
If you could give a piece of advice to prolong the career of a bodybuilder, in retrospect, 2020, what advice would you give?
Stay away from painkillers. control your blood pressure, because there's drugs out there you can take that can control your blood pressure that won't interfere with your training, your diet. You know, every time I saw a doctor, they're like, you need to stop or you're going to kill yourself. You know, if I had a doctor that said, hey, I know you have a goal, control your blood pressure, you know, you'll be healthier and you'll be a better competitor, you know. If someone said that to me, I would really take that information in. So if there's something I can tell people, you know, especially bodybuilders, a lot of things they take and they do, it's making their blood pressure high, and that's eating away at their heart, it's eating away at their kidney, and it's just bad for you all around. So control your blood pressure. There's natural supplements you can take, and there's actually medication you can take that will control your blood pressure, that won't affect, you know, your lifts or your training or your contest prep.
And then what's your view of doctors? And in regards to the sport, what do you think bodybuilders view with doctors?
I just think it's funny how back when I was like a late teenager and back in New Jersey, go to doctors, I'd be asking them for prescriptions all the time, and they would look at me like I'm ridiculous. And nowadays, every other commercial you see is Viagra and Cialis and Androgel and T3 and yeah, exactly. So doctors are getting more on board with the effects of you know, hormone replacement therapy, and so I guess I'm happy in the direction that it's going.
So, what was your story, your Milos story? Maybe we can use his name because Milos is Milos. Everyone knows Milos.
Right.
2003 at the Hungarian Pro.
Right.
I had you personally beating him. Can you tell us a little bit, just tell us that story again?
Yeah, well, I was backstage, and it was the Hungarian Pro, and then backstage I see Milos there, and I just assume he's not competing because he's as white as a ghost. He looks like he's 190 pounds, and he did not look like he was competing or even working out at the time, even when he started to take off his clothes. And then all of a sudden I just saw him, you know, he started taking some insulin, which I assume, you know, he had a team of 2 guys that were injecting with acetylene at the time, started eating jars of baby food and jelly and jam, and put on his Protan, and I just watched him transform from a regular guy into an IFBB Pro bodybuilder. And it was actually amazing to just watch the transformation before my eyes, you know, that somebody could do that in less than an hour, basically.
And so he was doing his injections out in the open for an hour pre-contest?
Yeah, basically. Well, because in Budapest you can buy it in any pharmacy there, so it's not really illegal. You know, it's kind of like a team of, you know, the NASCAR guys. You know, they kind of just came out and everywhere.
That's dope. What type of like partying experiences after these contests would you like what type of things would IFBB pros be doing after these contests?
Partying?
Yeah.
Oh, first time I had my party experience was in Las Vegas, and it was a good time. There was ecstasy involved, and I remember in the cab pulling up in front of a club. I think it was Club 7. Craig Titus was probably hosting it, and I was just feeling really nauseous in the cab. And from the show, there's everybody kind of lined up waiting to get into the club with their nice dresses on, and everybody's looking all nice, and I couldn't hold my stomach anymore. And as soon as the cab pulled up out front, I opened up the door and projectile vomited all over the street, and everybody turned around, and it was I don't know, kind of horrifying for me, but I guess it was the highlight of everybody else's night. But after I got that out, it was a really fun night. I mean, partying with a lot of those the IFBB pros and a lot of good people. I mean, it was a really cool experience, you know.
Do you have any unique partying experiences?
Yeah, I got a lot of them, the ones I can remember.
PC, let's hear some ones you can say on camera. How about that?
Right. Well, I know I've gone through a ketamine phase before, and ketamine that'll put you in a dream state right away. But it's just fun being in clubs and having your VIP booth, and you and a couple of your friends will go, you know, smuggle off to the bathroom, into the bathroom stall, and then come out floating on air, and it just makes the music a lot better and makes life a little crazy.
And how hand in hand would you say like drug culture and bodybuilding culture? You know, because I feel like they're not one and the same, but I feel like we kind of have to go, like it's like a gateway drug. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, like I said before, bodybuilding has such an arsenal of drugs that you're taking pills and injecting yourself intravenously. I mean, so it makes you very non-needle phobic, and just through taking all the drugs, like you said, the drug culture, it's very easy to go to the club and someone says, here, take this one pill. You know, I mean, it's very easy. Like I said, it's a kind of a gateway kind of a thing. You know, you're already used to taking all this stuff. So, but there's there are party drugs out there. You take one pill, and all of a sudden, woo, you're.
And so, how common would you say that type of partying is the IFBB level? Because I feel like it's high, but like I don't care in general. You know.
No, there's it's kind of just like anything else, or high school, or you know, you have your group of people that are into that, and your group of people that
where'd you fall in this spectrum?
Are not. For the longest part, like, I mean, I never drank in high school, and I never went to college. I never got into any partying or drinking or smoking or any of that until I moved to Venice Beach and, you know, got into that whole culture.
So Venice was a transition for you, you think?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit before that, but then it was, you know, there's a lot of people that were into that lifestyle, and a lot of those people trained at Gold's Gym, so it was, you know, they were there.
What was Gold's like at that time period? Because that was when Gold was still Gold.
Awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, I think I got it right at the tail end, but it was great. It was great moving out there, just from, you know, coming from the East Coast and coming out there and knowing that so many great champions trained there, and then getting to be one of those champions at that gym. You know, it was amazing with all the Olympia people up on the wall, and just watching the celebrities that would go through there. And I'd see James Caan there, and met The Rock there, and met
what bodybuilders were training there?
Mickey Rourke there.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Before he got his, you know,
reinvigorated the career.
Right, exactly.
Site enhancement oil. How about first obvious kind of question. What percentage of professional IFBB professionals would you say use site enhancement oil?
Well, back in the 90s, I think most everybody tried it. You know, I've gone through my share of bottles. But like I told you before, I think there's a certain body that can take it and looks good, and other people, they take it and they just look lumpy. You know, they don't absorb it very well. So back in the 90s, I think everybody tried it. And nowadays, you know, I think it's kind of lost a little bit of its luster, you know. Plus, you know, you still don't know where all that oil goes. I mean, all that oil you're pumping in your body, I mean, you don't know the long-term effects of that. You know, not to mention the people that do know, that have taken it, that have gotten abscess and have to get it cut out, and parts of their muscle getting cut out of their body, and
or rotting away apparently.
Or that, you know. But yeah, getting your muscle surgically removed from your body is not a good bodybuilding mix.
At what phase did you start to hear about site enhancement oils, and then when did you start to use them?
Probably the early 90s, and then as soon as I could get my hands on them, you know. But you know, a lot of things you hear through bodybuilding that, you know, there's always people being guinea pigs and trying stuff, and a lot of stuff comes onto the scene, and then you hear about it, and then you hear about it from a personal friend, and then you try it, and then sometimes it's not all it's cracked up to be. I mean, there's usually like a 5% window of, you know, when they actually turn out to be beneficial to your bodybuilding career. You know, nothing substitutes hard work and dedication.
Exactly, and that's something about this too, is that, like, you know, we're talking a lot about the drugs, but like, there's so many facets to professional bodybuilding, like, and the partying. We're looking at, you know, one part, but I feel like people.
Well, let me first say that partying is not going to help you in your bodybuilding career whatsoever. You know, I mean, it's fun to hang out with your friends and party, but I mean, as far as being beneficial to your bodybuilding career, it's not. It's downright detrimental to your bodybuilding career. So, I mean, if you want to be a good bodybuilder, you need to put the partying aside completely.
How would you say Venice, from that aspect, how did it further and hinder your career? Like, how did it help your career? How did it hurt?
Well, it helped my career just in being at the Mecca. There's a lot of photographers there. I mean, you're in the pipeline of bodybuilding, and then not good because you have a lot of people around you, and you have a lot of access to a lot of bad things. You know, just seems like when you're down or depressed, there's always somebody there that is willing to take you to the bar or take you to the club or give you this and give you that, and it's not the thing you need at the time. You know.
So, how would you kind of summarize your time in Venice? Because I feel like it's kind of a blur, is the vibe I'm getting, but what would you say? What would your assessment of it be?
I think it was awesome. I think it was the highlight of my career. I wouldn't have missed it for anything. And even though I, you know, might have indulged in some of the party stuff, I mean, that's part of the culture. I mean, when you go to California, free love and all that stuff, it's just, it's just what's there, you know. And I'm glad I actually got to experience it and live it than to just hear about it, you know. But I will say that it's not as glamorous and magical as sometimes it appears to be. A lot of times when you're in it, it's a little evil. It's very evil, you know.
Craig Titus interactions.
I would see him at Gold's. I trained with him at a bunch of competitions. He beat me at one competition. I think it was in Texas, and I was there with my family, and he was really nice, you know. He actually said to me after the show, he's like, hey, I think you look better. I think you should have beat me. He went out and ate with my family that night, and you know, was a pretty cool guy. But I mean, I also seen the other side with him when he was having the feud with Sean Ray, and they got into almost a fist fight before the prejudging at some pro show, and Sean Ray called him a convict or something like that. So it was he was ready to throw his fist at a drop of a hat.
You've seen both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like Sean was instigating a little more than he needed to. You know.
Sean Ray.
But hey, you're only in control of yourself, right?
That's pretty crazy. King Kamali, how about that? Any interactions with King Kamali? Because he's around that area.
Yeah, he's a dick.
He's a real dick.
Yeah, he's a dick. I've just seen him do some stuff that's just mean, you know, mean to people, evil to people, you know. And I know he plays up that whole cocky persona, but he really is that way. What has happened to him? Is he? I haven't.
He's fucking a fat trainer.
Is he alive at all?
He's alive. He's alive. He's just.
He still owes me $40, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah. So just want to let him know that.
What would you say, like, the darker sides of bodybuilding that you didn't, when you got into the sport? You know, people have a vision of the sport. People have a gay for pay. Like, what type of shit would you see during the 90s with that type of stuff? Like, how common was it?
That's another part that's just part of the culture that's in there. And, you know, bodybuilders can do that or not do that. And, you know, it's there, you know. But, I mean, there's a certain line of when is it prostitution, you know what I mean? If somebody wants to take a picture of you, you know, what's the difference if they do that, you know, in the auditorium of the expo, or they want to go up to your room and take it in your room, you know? And whether that's in posing trunks or whether they want to touch your leg, you know, any bodybuilder can take it to whatever level they want, you know? But I mean, if someone wants to pay me $600 to go up to my, you know, hotel room and photograph me in my posing trunks, which is something I'm going to be doing on stage anyway, I don't mind giving them a private show, you know? Bodybuilders got to make their money. This sport's expensive.
Exactly. So sport's expensive. What makes it so expensive, would you say?
Well, your food bill, the drugs, the traveling to the shows, the NPC card. I heard NPC card is very expensive now, you know? And I got an NPC card, I think, because I had to get a backstage pass before, and I still didn't even get my NPC News. I thought when you got an NPC card, you automatically got a subscription to the NPC News. I was looking forward to getting it, and I didn't get it. So yeah, it's expensive. The entry fee for the show, you know, at national level, you got to fly yourself there. You got to pay for your hotel room. You got to pay for your food and pack up your food. I mean, it's expensive. It's very expensive.
How many people have you seen like fall off? If that makes sense. Like, how many people like?
How do you mean?
Were like trying to like get to where you were going, and something went wrong along the way. You know, like
every day. I mean, working in a gym and being in gyms my whole life. I mean, you know, most everybody, when they compete, they want to take it to the next level, and only one person becomes Mr. Olympia, and only one person gets to be the overall winner at the USA, and all the rest, you know, are kind of fall off in a sense, you know. It just depends, I guess, in how you make your exit out of the sport, you know.
And when you started to have your health issues, like what was your perception of the sport at that time? Like, did you blame the sport? Or were you angry? Like, or what, you know, what was going through your head?
I was ready. No, when I got that result, I was ready. Yeah, I felt like God was speaking to me, you know. And you know, I was older. I mean, 2005, I was 34 years old. I gave it a good run, and then in hindsight, having Robin Chang going to get invited to the wild card Olympia, and then to compete there, and to compete there naturally. I mean, that was like, that kind of blew me away, you know. So I mean, Yeah, I couldn't ask for anything better, you know. If you would have told me, you know, when I was a teenager at any point during my career to say, hey Mike, you're going to make it and you're going to become pro and you're going to compete on the Mr. Olympia stage, but you're going to be on there and you're going to do it completely natural, I would never believe you. I would have thought you were from another planet, but that's what happened, and it's awesome.
Tell me the Toronto story. So, like, I know I asked you about like your early career, and I felt like you were overlooked, and I'll probably post that photo again. But tell me that Toronto story again, just like what happened during that incident and how you think it had an impact on your career.
Yeah, well, it was my pro debut. So your pro debut, you need to make a statement of who you are and where you're going to place in the sport. And my first show was the Toronto Pro, and it was supposed to be a 2-hour flight from Philly to Toronto. There was weather issues, and the 2-hour flight ended up taking about an hour and a half. We had to go to another state. I had to get on a different plane. I ran out of food. I had to eat food at the airport. We didn't even get to Toronto. We got to some airport an hour and a half outside of Toronto. I had a voucher for a blue cab. When I went to go get the blue cab, there's a whole sea of yellow cabs and one blue cab at the end. And when I go down there, this is 8 hours later, I'm starving, I'm freaking out, my cortisone levels are through the roof. The blue cab guy is fist fighting with the yellow cab guy in front of him. I had to break these guys up to say, hey, I got the voucher for your blue cab. You need to drive me to the hotel. Hour and a half later, I get to the hotel, and the first person I see is Jim Mannion. I missed the competitor meeting. You know, Jim Mannion's like, where the fuck were you? You know, his words basically, exactly. And so I had to go and give him my CD late, get my last number late. I was the last number on the very end. And just from running out of food and having my cortisone levels be spiked so high, I feel like it affected my physique. And you know, enough to knock me from what would have been a top 5 finish into, I think I got 8th or 9th or 12th or whatever I got at that show. So not a good start to your pro career.
I'm the Hungarian pro. I'm like, God damn, like what do you got to do to catch a break here?
Yeah,
like,
I thought I was top 5 there.
I definitely thought so, especially if Milos did so well now.
Right.
Let's see here. What was the last show you did before the one in the people that are always posting your 2006 after and before one? What was that before one?
What were they?
Where you're still 2006 or 2005?
The last show I did was the Australian Pro in 2005. That was the last show I did actually on gear and stuff.
And what was your assessment of that show?
Excuse me.
And what was your assessment of your career at that point? Like, what were you? What was
that was to me, that was the pinnacle of my career. That was my first top 5 finish at a pro show. Lee Priest won. Chris Cormier was 2nd. I got 5th. I feel like I should have been 4th. I think I forget his name, Heido or. Anyway, I felt great. I got prize money. I got $2,000. You know, that promoter paid my way to the competition, and that was a great time in Australia. Australia was a fun place, and coming back from that, I was at the height of my career, and that's when I came back and got my blood work done, and that's when I went to the nephrologist, and they were, you know, I was faced with the decision of, you know, hey, the best you've ever done in your pro career now, and you got to let it go. So.
And how did the downsize process begin? Like what, you know, like what? I mean, after your because you competed again, but then after that, what was your goal? You know?
Well, like I said, when I was in the office of the nephrologist, and he said, we got to get you set up for dialysis, you know, first thing I said to him was like, okay, what do I need to do? What do you need to prescribe me, and what do I got to do to make myself better? What do I have to do to heal myself? I'm ready to do this. And he said, there's basically nothing you can do. Your kidneys don't heal themselves, and it basically just gets worse from here. And, you know, I did whatever I do to every doctor and said, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to do my own thing. And I stopped, and I was like, well, I just use common sense. I said, the first thing I need to do is stop taking all the drugs I'm taking, which means every bodybuilding drug, every painkiller. I need to stop all the drugs. I need to research this and find out what I need to do as far as lifestyle changes, lower my protein, control my blood pressure, find out whatever holistic medicine is out there, things I can do and things I need to take to heal myself. And I did that. And thank God, you know, my kidney levels came back to a normal level. But I took all the dedication and perseverance I had that I put into becoming a pro, and now I put that into saving my life. So,
which is a bit more of an accomplishment. If you
yeah, well, I went back to the nephrologist 6 months later, and I remember him looking at my blood work test again, kind of laughing in a sense, saying like, wow, this is this is impressive, Mike. I didn't expect to see this. And that kind of gave me hope that I can continue to get myself better, and I did.
Escalane, or is that how you say it?
Acetylene?
Acetylene. I'll go with you on that one.
Yeah.
Thoughts, opinions. That's something people don't talk about a lot.
Yeah.
How much in the 90s would you say guys were using it pre-contest?
Anybody that could get their hands on it. I know I always tried to get my hands on it. If anybody had it, I was like, I'll take it. It was a neat drug. It's not like Synthroid. It's not just oil. It was an actual drug. I think it was made in Italy. And it came in little ampules, little 2 cc or 1.5 cc ampules. And you'd inject it directly into your muscle and it would inflame your muscle. I don't know exactly what it was used for. I think I heard somewhere that since it inflames the muscle tissue, they could do something where they could go in there to perform surgery on muscles or something. But it did inflate your muscles, and you could use it on your side delts and your biceps and your triceps or lats or wherever. And it worked good, but it only worked for about a day or so. So you had to use it the day of the competition. So you basically would buy it and stock up for it, and then the day of the competition, you
think it had that big of an impact?
Not really, because sometimes you'd put it in your bicep, and your bicep is long, and sometimes it would almost look like they inserted a hot dog underneath your skin. So this side, the middle of it would be pumped up real big, and the other side wouldn't. But then people would say, "Whoa, just put a shot there," And like I said, the same with Synthroid. Sometimes people's bodies would take it, and it would look good, and it would make it look bigger, but it would also make it look a little smoother or kind of waterier. It wouldn't have that crisp, hard condition, But if you have weak biceps, it would definitely put biceps on you. But I mean, I haven't heard of too many guys that would lose shows because their biceps weren't up to par,
That's interesting. When did you start to use that? Or what shows? What era?
I'm trying to remember. It was probably post 91. I don't think I had it at the Teen Nationals. I don't think I had it at that point. Probably early 90s. Yeah.
And then back to like the rec drug stuff. So like you mentioned like the painkillers are still an issue. Like they can still be issues. Like and it's been how long since you competed? Like
2005.
2005. So a couple years.
Yeah.
How big of an issue is that still? Would you say?
It's hard. It's hard. Like even if I go to a dentist, I mean, I had to get a tooth pulled a couple years ago, and I was freaking out. Like, he's going to give me something. Do I take it? Do I not take it? And it was like, I thought I was going to have a relapse, but it's hard. People will want to give them to me, and I'll be like, no, just keep them away from me. So I just need to stay strong and stay away from them, because I mean, I've learned through relapse after relapse that it's just a vicious cycle. When you go on, you're high and you feel good, and then you have to go through a down period where you have to come off, and it's just there's more shittiness than good feelingness. So my conclusion is to just stay away from them completely.
And how would I feel like a lot of people like psychologically become dependent on being that size? But you seem like one of the most like normal, and you're still big. Let's put that out there, But like, how's your mentality changed? I mean, did you already conquer that hill? That's kind of what I feel,
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I never stopped training. I never stopped working out. I love working out. I'll do it to the day I die. But from that time at the nephrologist's office, and I decided I wanted to heal myself. I put myself in the state of mind of, okay, I'm gonna come off all the steroids, and I'm gonna lose size. I'm gonna get smaller, and I mentally prepared myself for that. And I'm not gonna say it was easy. It was hard. I remember being on the Smith machine, when my bicep was 21 inches and it would stretch the sleeve, and I remember being at the gym one point, a couple months later, where there was like space between because my arms were getting smaller. So I mean, there's certain things I remember, like watching yourself shrink, is a little discouraging. But I mentally prepared myself for it, and I wanted to do, just like I wanted to do whatever it took to become a pro bodybuilder, I wanted to do whatever it took to get myself better. So I just kind of rolled with the punches,
Is there anything else you want like out there? Like,
well, I think when I first stopped and I was losing a lot of size and I would not see people for a while, I didn't like it when people pitied me. When people would come up and they hadn't seen me in a while, and they would be like, "Oh, hey, Mike," like I don't know, for whatever reason, that kind of pissed me off a little bit. It's like, hey, I'm still the same person. I'm fine. I'm just like 60 pounds smaller. But I understand that, when people see Mike Morris and they see a 265 pound guy, and now they see a 195 pound guy, it's not what they're used to seeing. But, you know, I am who I am, you know? So.
That's great. That's great. All right, Mike. I mean, that's pretty much everything I got for you today. Is there anything else you want, like, people to know? Is there any stories? You got anything? Like? Yeah,
just the painkillers. Stay away from the painkillers, man. I mean, like I said, if there's one thing I could tell an aspiring bodybuilder, it's, you know, there's bodybuilding drugs you take that help your career, and there's other ones that hinder it. And painkillers is definitely one of those ones that doesn't help it at all. So.
Awesome. And then, wait, let's do a little bit about dosages too. People love dosages and they want to hear numbers. And you can shit on whatever, I don't care.
Right.
You know, whatever you say, people are like, oh shit. So, what would you say dosages when you did T-Nats, for example, which is, I know, 20 years ago.
Yeah, T-Nat. I think I was taking. I think I took Deca for earlier in the cycle, and then I think before the show was Winstrol and Anavar. That was it. You know, Winstrol and Anavar, not much. I mean, when you're getting ready for a show, you don't want to take too many drugs. All drugs make you hold water to a certain degree. So, I mean, I think I was taking a little bit of Winstrol and a little bit of Anavar. That was it for the teen nationals. Now, as far as the shows, as I progressed, as I got to be a pro, especially living in California, there'd be a time where I was taking a 3cc shot pretty much every day. You know, I'd take a 3cc shot here, 3cc shot here, one on my shoulder, 4 days later, one here, and then I'd take a day off and I'd start to process over. And that usually equates to about 3,600 milligrams a week, basically. And then orals on top of that, not counting growth, not counting insulin, not counting anti-estrogens, not counting clenbuterol. So, you know, there's some doses.
Impacts of certain things. Okay, so IGF-3. What do you feel about like IGF?
IGF-1?
Or, yeah, there you go. My bad.
Yeah, I like growth a little better, but the IGF-1, again, I think that was more of a hardener. You know, I think it was advocated as like a big recuperation kind of a drug. I know a lot of people do site sections with it now. Back in the day when I took it, I just took it sub-Q, and I took it right after a workout, and in hopes that it would help me recuperate faster. But the gains I noticed, or the way I noticed it affected my body, was I got harder, you know, more vascular. I got that grainy, dry look.
Bad story, like bad things you see in the bodybuilding industry. How about that?
Well, I can tell you, right before I turned pro, the insulin story about that. It was the year I turned pro, 1999. About a week before the show, I was, you know, going to CVS and I was going to buy my razors and everything. I had already cooked my meal of egg whites and oatmeal. It was ready for me to eat. I took my insulin shot and I went to go to CVS. It was about a mile up the street, and then walking through the aisle, I could feel my blood pressure getting low. And this is the year after that I had the episode before. So I just dropped my basket on the ground. I just made a beeline right out the door, got my car, and started driving straight home to my oatmeal. A cop pulls me over, and then as soon as I saw the red lights, my heart rate went up. And by the time he got to the window, I'm covered in sweat. I could barely speak. I pulled out had everything ready for him, and I just said, I'm a diabetic and I need my insulin, and I handed it to him. And I was weighing about probably 225. And I heard him call, you know, hey, get me an ambulance and send me back up. And luckily another cop came that remembered the episode from last year and said, oh yeah, that's Mike, he's a bodybuilder, he freaks out every year. They called an ambulance. He was giving me that glucose to eat, and I didn't want to break my diet, so I was just pretending to eat it, and the cop reached his hand, and I don't remember doing this, he told me a month later because I saw him at a bar. He reached in to try, Mike, you got to squeeze it, and I apparently batted his hand away. He was like, oh shit. So the ambulance gets there, and now I'm like agitated because it's 10 minutes past my meal and they're screwing up my bodybuilding routine. And I go over to the ambulance and I'm almost like pulling the girl out of the ambulance, like, hurry up, let's get this done because I need to eat. Cops are like, whoa, starting to surround me. Calm down, Mike, calm down. There's already like 4 cops there now. And then it suddenly dawned on me that all they're going to do is they're going to take my blood sugar level, see how low it is, and they're going to make me eat or take me to the hospital. So I just got angry and just hulked out and just screamed and rah, and just took off running and just took off. And like I said, I saw the cop at a bar like I think a month later, and they said they just all stood around and, you know, they're like, you want to chase them or you can shoot them, one or the other. So they just let me take off. And like at that point, I think I lived a block and a half down the road or 2 blocks, and I ran all the way home, went through my back door, ate my oatmeal, ate my egg whites, and I left everything there, my car, my license. 10 minutes later, there's a knock at the door, and it's the cop with a fire truck, 3 ambulances, about 8 cop cars, and I opened the door, and the cop's like, "You feeling better, Mike?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so there's that story. They ended up taking my blood sugar, and then even after I ate, they could tell my color was better, and I was talking better and stuff like that. And then when they took my blood sugar level at that point, I think it was 40. So God knows what it was when I was on the side of the road, you know, looping, running. I don't even know how I had enough energy to run home. You know, I must have been running on pure adrenaline.
Jesus.
So
That's a pretty good one. That's
yeah,
a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you up to now? You're at Metroflex. We're at Metroflex Phoenix. What are you up to these days?
Just personal training. I'm happily married, and yeah, I'm just living the dream out here. Just trying to make a life as a personal trainer. And there's a lot of shows here in Arizona, and they got the USA and Vegas every year. So I just anybody that wants to come down and get training, I help prep them for the shows, and hopefully can help them become better bodybuilders and help them, you know, also do it, you know, healthy, you know, without doing some of the crazy stuff that can damage your health, you know, because there's life after bodybuilding, and, you know, I think a lot of people don't take that into consideration when they compete. It's a kind of like a now kind of a thing, and if I can teach them to do that under an umbrella of health and realize that there's life after bodybuilding and you want to live that life, you know, and not on dialysis and not with, you know, taking insulin, maybe I can help them do that.
And if people want to contact you for your personal training, how can they reach you?
They can contact me on my email address, which is morrismj20@gmail.com.
Okay, cool. And you mostly out of Metroflex?
Yeah, I train only exclusively out of Metroflex Phoenix. Do I need to pose?
Go for, you know what, stand up. Let's stand up. Let's go. Let me make sure I get a good shot.
How can I not?
Nice.
Oh.
God damn, Mike. That cell phone camera didn't do you justice. That is nutty.
At least I still got
You
legs.
would have won that Arizona show.